Okay, is it just me or do these three look like they're ready to rumble? While Donatello just looks like he's more ready for refreshments. This is the elusive Stump Wrestling 4-pack from NECA Toys. And while their outfits might look a little bit different than what we're used to, I can assure you that these are the same 4 heroes in a half shell that we know and love. These designs are based off of an arc from the original Archie comics, where the Turtles are forced to fight in an intergalactic wrestling federation. To play up that classic wrestling style, they each have these alter ego outfits, and honestly, aside from Michelangelo, it can be kinda hard to tell them apart. As always, the NECA team did a great job designing and sculpting these figures, and they actually seem to be popping up in Target pretty regularly, so use the barcode if it helps. But for now, let's bust open this box. We all know the toys themselves are going to be great, but honestly one of the best parts about this set comes behind the figures themselves. This box insert is honestly one of the best ones we've ever gotten. The Stump Wrestling Arena is packed to the brim with all sorts of weird aliens and kooky characters, and there's no shortage of references to other properties. We have this strange looking extraterrestrial right up front, with an abnormal alien hanging out right next to it. Hanging out way up in the nosebleeds, we have someone who lives in a pineapple under the sea, and hopefully this is a clue that we're getting a wingnut figure as well. Right in the center, we have a Triceraton and what looks like a piece of poop with Krang's glasses on. I hope this is supposed to be Hef from Rocko's Modern Life, and I bet these are the cheesiest Doritos in the entire universe. There's one more character that I didn't know by name, but I definitely think is familiar. I don't know if it's supposed to be the same character, but it definitely looks like this puppet that came with Pizza Club Michelangelo. There is definitely a resemblance. With all these references and Easter eggs, this is definitely an insert you're going to want to hold on to. It would look great in a dio as well. One thing that's kind of interesting, if you look at the back of the package, this must have been an older version of the background, because there's definitely an orange Oscar the Grouch and Kermit the Frog hanging out back there. But when you look at the same section of the one that was actually included, looks like they might have had to make some edits for copyright purposes. But enough box talk, we gotta talk about these figures instead. These are the first Turtles we've gotten in the Archie line, and I have to say they don't disappoint. I assumed that they would just reuse the Toon bodies or maybe the Jim Lawson bodies, but that is not the case. Everything is looking great out of the box, but let's start with those accessories. We have 8 different hands to go with the green Turtles, then 2 pair that are specifically for Raphael in his all-black attire. The actual star of the accessory show might be this foldable chair. Of course you can use it to wail on your enemies inside the ring, but you can also set a character on it, so that's pretty wild. Next we have a toony version of a fire extinguisher. We've gotten smaller, more realistic versions before with other packs, but this is the first Toon version. Its hose is a little bit pliable, but not too much. Next thing looks straight out of the Flintstones. We have this little dino bird thing ringing the bell. It is a little bit flexible, but I don't think it's supposed to be, so I wouldn't risk trying to move that thing. The design on the bird carries on to the backside, so that's a nice touch as well. We have a nice looking toony sledgehammer, which I can't believe is actually allowed in the ring, but you never know. And then a few refreshments. We have this red soda cup with a bendy straw, a nice purple ice cream cone, and finally a little can of intergalactic cola, complete with the opening on top, and some nice dents around the side. Taking a closer look at the characters, we have Leonardo up first. He's got the light blue pads and helmet, plus a little peace sign in the front. Next up, in red and yellow instead of his trademark purple, is actually Donatello. Of all the characters, this is probably the hardest to guess who's who. Next up, we have Raphael in the all-black. The shading on this one is super well done with that light blue accent. And then finally, the most obvious of them all is Michelangelo. You know they couldn't keep him from wearing that trademark bright orange. Like I mentioned earlier, it looks like the sculpts are completely brand new on these figures, which really surprised me. I don't dive too deeply into the articulation of each one, but they do have the double elbows and double knees. They seem to move really easily, and I appreciate that all of these arms and legs and shells and heads seem to be brand new. They could have easily just redone those Toon Turtles and called it good, and I think just as many people would have bought them. I'm hoping this probably opens the door for actual Archie Turtles in the future, but we'll probably have to see how well this line does. I was probably most impressed by the foot articulation. The ankle works really well, plus that rock side to side, really well done, not stuck at all. The back shell style is pretty cool and unique as well. Kinda looks like a Toon version of the Battle Damaged Last Ronin figure, so I'm here for it. It's looking good. Next up, we have Raphael. I don't know the full story about where he got his inspiration for this outfit, but it definitely looks good. And the design team at NECA really nailed that shading. The blue lines really help make it pop. Since he doesn't have any sort of belt or strap in the way, you can actually see this little gap behind the shell. Visibly, it doesn't look too odd because it's all black anyway. But I think it allows him to get a little bit more of a movement at the abs than you might get from a normal turtle. And then he can go pretty far back as well, which might help in some cool wrestling poses. I don't know if they planned it like this all along or it's only because he didn't have a belt it just worked out that way, but it's definitely a plus. Next up is the goofiest looking Donatello you'll ever see. I think his outfit is probably inspired by another super famous wrestler from the 80s, but I can't say that for sure. His outfit is a little more unique as well because he has this tunic going around the front and back. It's a little bit pliable, but definitely not bendable. You can't hold it in place or anything like that. He's also the only one that has the trademark turtle bandana with the knot in the back. Seems like you can move it around and pose it just a little bit, and it does kind of look like a yellow ponytail back there. And finally, we have Leonardo. He's definitely the most decked out as far as armor goes. He's got these 2 shoulder pads that are attached to the belt, and that whole piece itself is kind of loose on the body, so maybe that'll help out with posing. I'm not quite sure yet. Again, he's got that peace sign on the front, looking good, and down on the bottom he has those knee pads as well. Doesn't seem to be hindering any of the movement down there. Nice ferocious head sculpt, nice grin on there, looking good. Here are all 4 heroes decked out with some accessories. It's definitely a fun pack all on its own, but let's see how it compares to some other figures. First up, we've got to compare them to those Toon Turtles. Just at a glance, they look really similar, but when you stack them up right next to each other, these new sculpts really tower over those Pizza Club bros. The Archie-style turtles from the actual comic books did seem a little bit bulkier than the cartoon characters, but I'm still surprised they didn't reuse any of the parts. The hands are bigger, the bodies are bigger, the faces are completely different scale. I'm curious to see how they handle the normal Archie turtles when they eventually get to those down the line. And then lining them up next to the only other wrestling turtle we have so far, here we have the Stump Wrestling Leatherhead. Now this one I was actually pretty surprised by. I thought Leatherhead would be a lot bigger in comparison to the turtles, but they're pretty much the same height. Of course, Leatherhead has a way bigger head, that huge tail in the back, is overall a lot more bulky, but I expected him to be towering over the turtles a little bit more. It definitely doesn't look bad, and maybe that's how they scale in the comic books. I just expected it to be a larger figure. They've also released a Crying Hound figure already, and Ace Duck is on the way, so that should get us closer to completing the team. For now, I'll just have to team him up with Leatherhead. He's got Raph by the hand, while Leo has that folding chair ready to roll. We've got Mikey in there with the fire hydrant ready to do the old, "Oh, wise guy, eh?" And I guess that just leaves Donatello to help complete the fight. I do hope we get some more facial expressions down the line, because it doesn't look like Donnie's ready to rumble at all. But I guess he could just sit on the sidelines and play spectator, or maybe he's the announcer. Either way, his face seems more than ready for an ice cream cone and an ice cold soda. If you want to learn the full, true backstory of this line, there are a few different issues of the Archie comic book to check out. Issue 7 is the place to start out, so make sure you check that out if you want some more info. Remember to hold on to this amazing backdrop as well. I know people are going to come out with some great dioramas utilizing this thing. And if you want a set of these turtles for yourself, start checking the aisles at Target. They've been stocking a ton of new turtle stuff as part of their Cowabunga collection, so hopefully you can find them in your store.